So, September is Founders Month, and we celebrate patriotism as well as learning about our founders. We will go very in depth into this in the fifth grade social studies curriculum, but in order to give students some background knowledge, which is never a negative thing, I'm going to be reading a chapter a day from my book, What is the Declaration of Independence? So, this is by Michael C. Harris, and today I'm going to focus on the introduction and chapter 1. So, what is the Declaration of Independence? June 26, 1776, in Philadelphia. The June heat in Philadelphia was blistering. Even before the sun came up, it was hot. Thomas Jefferson of Virginia did his best to stay cool as he wrote in the room he had rented on Market Street. He was writing a letter, but it was no ordinary letter. Along with Jefferson, important men from all 13 American colonies had come to Philadelphia. They had planned to do something brave and dangerous. The colonies were declaring their freedom from Great Britain. They were going to create a new country, the United States of America. Thomas Jefferson was chosen to write a public letter to the British king listing all the reasons why people in America were rebelling. Jefferson, who also wanted the letter to show other countries in Europe why this was the right decision for America. It took Jefferson, with help from others, only a couple of weeks to finish one of the most important documents in history, the Declaration of Independence. Sending an announcement like a declaration meant that colonists in America would go to war. The British Army was large and powerful, and the colonists didn't even have an army. The chances were slim that the Americans would win, and many would certainly die. And even if by some chance that the colonists did win their freedom, could 13 different colonies create a new country together? For 2 weeks, Jefferson worked on the Declaration of Independence. As he sat at his desk that he had made by hand, he wrote in ink on large sheets of paper with his quill pen. And each day Jefferson would discuss the ideas for the Declaration and some of the other men who had gathered in Philadelphia. After these talks, Jefferson would sometimes tear up his most recent draft of the Declaration and start over. He wanted to get every word just right. The Declaration had to explain more than why the colonies could no longer live under British rule. More importantly, it had to tell the world what this new country hoped to stand for. It would not have a king. It would set up a government in which ordinary men decided the laws. And after the Declaration of Independence was finished, it was signed on July 4th, 1776. It has become one of the most important statements of freedom. It was inspired and has inspired people around the world to fight for freedom. Thomas Jefferson wrote, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal." This meant that this new United States would treat everyone the same. Jefferson may not have realized how powerful those simple words would be for hundreds of years to come. But were all men created equal? Jefferson's famous phrase about all men being created equal didn't really hold true in the American colonies. In 1776, there were about half a million African slaves that belonged to white colonists. Jefferson himself even owned slaves. So did many of the other men who signed the Declaration of Independence. In his first version of the Declaration, Jefferson included anti-slavery language, but too many of the signers didn't want to end slavery, so there is no mention of it. Jefferson did free a few of his slaves, and so did many of the other men who signed the Declaration of Independence. So not all men were created equal, or at least the phrase was not being used in practice. Chapter 1, The Battle for America. After Columbus set foot in the New World in 1492, many European countries wanted to rule different parts of the North American continent. Great Britain, France, and Spain controlled almost the entire continent. Great Britain had 13 colonies along the east coast where most of the settlers lived. France, which was Great Britain's rival, had the largest area of land north and west of the colonies. But not many settlers lived there. Same with Spain. It had a bigger chunk of land than Great Britain, but far fewer people who lived there. There's a map I'm going to show you in a moment that shows you just how much land each of the areas included. So you can see here that we have the Great Britain area, and then we also have lines representing Great Britain, and then France, and the dotted lines represent Spain. So while Spain and France had more territory, they had fewer people living in those territories. In 1754, Great Britain tried to grab more of North America by invading the lands that were controlled by the French, but this only led to a war that was known as the French and Indian War. A young lieutenant colonel named George Washington served in the British Army fighting against the French. Most American colonists wanted Great Britain to win the war with France, and after many years, it did. Great Britain doubled the area of land it controlled. So we're going to look at two different maps, before the war and after the war. You can see before the war, France with the lines had a lot more territory, but after the war, the darker color shows the Great Britain region, which has increased after that war. During the war, many British soldiers were sent to America to fight. This had been very costly. King George III had to borrow massive amounts of money from other countries. After winning the war, King George III had to pay back what he owed. In the king's mind, he had been defending the American colonies against the French, so he expected that the colonies would help him with the war debt. This angered the people in America. It was the colonists' idea to start the war. It had been fought because the king wanted more land. So why should Americans have to pay? George Washington was a British soldier, the son of a successful Virginia farmer. George Washington was only 22 years old when he led 150 British soldiers against French troops along the Ohio River. This was at the very beginning of the French and Indian War. His troops were defeated by the French army, and Washington had to surrender. He was ashamed. A year later, Washington returned to the same area to fight, and once again the French overpowered his forces. Washington had 2 horses shot from underneath him. The best that he could do was lead the defeated British soldiers back to safety. Although praised for his bravery in the war, Washington retired from the British army in 1758. He returned to his farm in Virginia. However, 17 years later, Washington became commander-in-chief of the Continental Army, and now he was fighting against Great Britain. King George III didn't listen to that argument. The British government called Parliament taxed the American colonists heavily to pay for the war debts. The American colonists had no one representing them in Parliament. It met in London, more than 3,000 miles away and across the Atlantic Ocean. The colonists had no way to argue against the high taxes. Did Parliament decide on all laws governing the colonies? No, there were local governments with men that were elected by their fellow colonists. In Virginia, for example, there was the House of Burgesses. However, none of these groups had much power. In each colony, a royal governor made all the important decisions. Whenever or whatever the governor decided should be the law was the law, and he was appointed by the king. So Great Britain always had the final say about all the laws and all the taxes, and that got people in the colonies angry, very angry. And that's where we end on chapter 1. Tomorrow I'll read you chapter 2, taxes and more taxes. It's the kind of stuff that just makes colonists livid. We'll learn more tomorrow. Thank you for watching.